Hello, everybody. Welcome to Digital Asset News. And what I want to talk to you about today is that it was an interview over this weekend, and it was the Senate Banking Chair, Sherrod Brown, and he talked about how he wants to ban crypto in its entirety. So it's amazing how you can take a little piece of information and kind of distort it. So we're going to take a look at the whole thing and see exactly what he's talking about. Also, we're going to talk about some of his views about FTX, campaign contributions, and everything that's in between as far as like consumer protection. Also, just take a quick look at how the UK is getting beat down by inflation. I got to tell you, I don't see how things can continue that way as being sustainable. And lastly, we'll talk about SBF in the hospital. Debatable. I don't think that's actually true. Celsius updates and something about Twitter Spaces. Then, of course, we'll do a little Q&A at the very end. So first things first, before we get into the big story, we take a look at the Satoshi converter. And I like to talk about this because it's important that people understand that you don't have to buy a full Bitcoin at $17,000 or whatever it is priced at. I have no idea. I haven't checked the price, which is, I haven't been checking the price for quite some time because I know it's going to suck for a while. But I do this to remind people that you don't need to buy one whole Bitcoin. You can buy $1 worth of Bitcoin, and that is Satoshis. And so everybody's crystal clear what this is. I get these questions. They're like, "Is there a new coin called Satoshi?" No, there's not. This is the problem with this space. We keep talking about Bitcoin, and people don't understand like Satoshis are just the smaller value of one whole Bitcoin. It's like how you can have 100 pennies for $1. That's essentially what we're talking about here. So Satoshis are just a smaller fractionalized share of what Bitcoin actually is to complete one full Bitcoin. So right now, for $1, you can get 6,000. Probably not right. Let me refresh this real quick because times always change. Oh, so hey, price must have gone up because you can only get 5,900 Satoshis in just 24 hours. A little bit of a drop. So as time goes on, we'll see how low that number goes. All right. So today, I want to talk about Sherrod Brown. And he was on Meet the Press with Chuck Todd. And he just talked about, and Chuck asked him a pretty, relevant question, which is like, hey, a lot of your colleagues are talking about banning crypto, Bitcoin being one of those, obviously. And he pretty much went along with it. But before we get on to this, I think it's more important to understand, who this person is and who is talking. Because I know right now some people are probably saying, I don't know this guy, but I just assume that he is in the back pocket of every single bank that's out there. First of all, let's be honest. He's a politician. So chances are that might be pretty true. But if we take a look at some of his actions in the past, it's not really so much. So first of all, I link this in the description. You can find this. This is Sherrod Brown. He's from Virginia, senator for quite some time, tenured member. And he is the Senate Banking Committee chair. Oh, excuse me, Ohio. Where did I get Virginia from? Sorry. And he's been in Congress or Senate for quite some time. Now he's overseeing one of the largest committees, Senate Banking Committee. So you would expect him to be, pretty lenient on said banks. However, it was just a statement that was put out today. And this is he's talking about the CFPB, or the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Order requires Wells Fargo to pay $3.7 billion for mismanagement and hurting consumers. And of course, some people might say, well, if in the back pocket, he'd probably be against that. But he's like, no, look, today's action should come as no surprise. Wells Fargo's inability to manage the base requirements of serving its customers means that consumers, investors, employees continue to pay the price. Wells Fargo must be able to fulfill its promise to its customers, its employees, and the communities it serves. As chair of the Banking and Housing Committee, I will continue to work with watchdogs like the CFPB to hold Wall Street accountable when wrongdoing occurs. So don't just assume that somebody's like in the back pocket of banking sectors. I think we have to take a look a little bit deeper than that. But it is interesting, though, what he says here. So this is really broken up into three parts. Because when I hear politicians talk about crypto, I immediately think they have no idea what they're talking about. And I immediately think that they don't know the difference between what crypto is, what decentralized is, what a proof of work and proof of stake, and also how to distinguish between what is going on with FTX Celsius, Voyager, BlockFi, centralized entities, and the decentralized parts of crypto. That's the first thing I automatically assume. And Senator Brown here does know the difference. So I think the things that he talks about, we have to take it with a little bit of gravity of the situation and see exactly what he's saying. So just take a listen here. This is about the first minute or so, and we will go from there of what he says. Just take a listen.
Let me shift gears to something you're also very focused on right now, which is, as head of the Senate Banking Committee, it's what to do about crypto and what we've learned from FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. I got to play what the U.S. Attorney from the Southern District of New York said earlier this week. Let me play that for you.
I think it's fair to say that by anyone's lights, this is one of the biggest financial frauds in American history.
And a big part of this financial fraud is how much, frankly, Sam Bankman-Fried, his executives, FTX, took advantage of political parties' hunger for campaign contributions and essentially used political donations to create the illusion of credibility for what many people think is a Ponzi scheme. I know probably where your head is on this, but my goodness, that's a huge vulnerability in our system, is it not?
So let me get this before we go on. I thought it's funny that Chuck Todd saying that's a huge vulnerability in our system that we're able to give donations and funds to politicians. That's been going on for hundreds of years. There's no difference. I don't understand where if it's FTX or a banking system or something else. Just to me, it's just asinine to even say that. And of course, you know, Senator Brown's gonna be like, yeah, sure, it's pretty awful, but just take a listen.
Of course it is. And too much money in politics, too much unreported cash in politics. But FTX is only a huge part, but one part of this problem. You originally said I chair the banking committee. When I took over almost 2 years ago as chair, it was called the Banking Committee because it essentially was the committee for Wall Street. And the whole name, Banking, Housing, Urban Affairs, we have aggressively taken on Wall Street. This committee's about housing. It's about public transit, what we've done in small towns and big cities in my state and around the country. And we had our 6th hearing on crypto to educate the public about its dangers, not just the Ponzi scheme that you talk about, and not just the lack of consumer protection or regulation, but also the threat to national security, from Korean cyber criminals to drug trafficking and human trafficking and financing of terrorism and all the things that can come out of crypto. So we've got to do this right. I have already gone to Secretary of the Treasury as sort of the lead economics person in the administration, ask her to do a government-wide assessment through all the various regulatory agencies. SEC is particularly aggressive, and we need to move forward that way and legislatively if it comes to that. But I've spent much of the last 1.5 years in this job as chair of the Banking, Housing, Urban Affairs Committee, educating my colleagues and trying to educate the public about crypto and the dangers that it presents to our security as a nation and to consumers that get hoodwinked by them.
I got to tell you, there's always another side to every story of what he talks about, but Senator Brown knows enough about crypto and can explain it to his colleagues to where it's dangerous for what he talks about. If he wanted to move or sway opinion in his party in one way or the other for crypto, what he just said, they could, since not everybody knows exactly what's going on, you don't need to be the smartest person in the room about crypto. You just have to be a little smarter than the next guy to push them along. And unfortunately, with what Senator Brown just said, he can make a pretty compelling case. Unfortunately, or fortunately enough, there's different parts of the Senate, different parts of Congress, and hopefully we'd have somebody like Tom Emmer or a Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming that would kind of counteract those points. But as you can see, when he talks about these things, and he talks about the dog whistle words, which is national security, cybersecurity, terrorism, drug cartels, the same thing we hear over and over again. Of course, there's different things we can say about that. Obviously, we can actually track things a little bit easier than we can with good old cash. Cash still is king, and especially if you want to hide transactions, very easy to do. So when these types of things, I think to myself, well, that's not great. Now we're going to get into where he talks about, I'd like to ban crypto. And immediately as he says it, watch the wheels turn, because this is the second part that people don't really talk about. They just say that this guy wants to ban crypto. They don't talk about the second part about what he was saying. So just take a listen. This will make sense in a little bit.
Are you at all concerned that if government decides crypto should be regulated, it's actually giving a green light to something that maybe some folks ought to be banned? Senator Tester isn't sure it should be legal.
Yeah, I share that thought. I think, though, that what we need to do now is, as I said, get Treasury to get all the different agencies. The agencies so far that have stepped up the most are Gensler at SEC and Russ Baum at the Commodities Future Trading Commission. That's a more narrow jurisdiction he has. But we want them to do what they need to do at the same time. Maybe banning it, although banning it is very difficult because it will go offshore and who knows how that will work. So this is a complicated, unregulated pot of money. It's been in so many ways. I mean, the Sam Bankman-Fried was at one point worth, they said, $30 billion, and now he's worth probably less than zero and may very well face jail time. But FTX is not the whole issue. That's what the focus started in our committee, but we really broadened it to discuss all the other, in every other nook and cranny in our economy where these people rear their heads.
So that's pretty much it. But I will say this, as I was listening to it, maybe I was wrong, because at first what he talked about is he said, I understand, that we need to regulate crypto and we should ban it. And then he talks about FTX, but then he said, it's not the big issue. And I will say, since he understands that part, I mean, at least he's far and away ahead of most of his colleagues right now, as they are calling for everything to be banned or to have some issue moving forward. So at least he's taken that second step. And then the third step is what he just talked about. He didn't realize it, but I think he's going to realize it pretty quickly when he talks about, look, we should ban it. Senator Tester talks about it. He goes, but then he goes, I don't know how that would work, because then everything would just go offshore. And I don't think he understands that if he's talking about centralized entities like an FTX or a Celsius or a Voyager, and talking about them going, those are centralized entities. They can go everywhere. Crypto itself is already global. You can't really stop that. You can't rein that in. The only thing you can do is you can make it real hard as hell to for the on ramps and off ramps for the average U.S. citizen to get into crypto. But even then, there's still ways around it. If you think you're going to ban crypto, hell, China couldn't even ban crypto Bitcoin mining. There's still Bitcoin miners that are going on to this day, even though they had a mass exodus. So let me know what you think about that in the comment section. I just had a lot of questions about it. I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention because I'm like, I don't want to answer this, individually. This is what he said. Yes, he probably wants to ban crypto. What's probably going to happen is that they're going to come down really hard on centralized exchanges because they realize that they can't do it. And when they make a vacuum, it's going to lead to other countries adopting it, and then America gets left behind. That's all I'll say. Let me just think about that. Now let's go into, unfortunately, a little quick pieces. Now things will go a little bit quicker. Inflation. Inflation is crushing everybody. And right now, first of all, there's this great website. I talk about this many times. It's free. Don't worry. It's free. And it's called Trueflation. There's a link in the description, but it's app.trueflation. What I like about this is because it uses Chainlink as an oracle to pull outside data, and you get a bunch of real-time feeds of the actual data that's being pulled in, not like the Federal Reserve, backwards looking types of things. But they called it right when the Fed was saying that, the interest rate or the inflation was only 7, 8, 9%. I mean, Trueflation was like, no, it's way higher than that. And now that, again, the Fed's kind of looking a little bit backwards, they're saying that, it's coming down, but it's very slowly. But in all honesty, Trueflation is saying a totally different story. And you can take a look at the way they do these things. But one thing that I will say is this: USA, I mean, we have inflation, but sweet Mary and Joseph, look at this, almost 20% for the UK. And if you're from the UK or any parts of the EU, just sound off and tell me if this is wrong. Because what I hear from everybody, and maybe I'm not listening to everybody, maybe I haven't heard from anybody, but everybody's like, we are getting crushed right now with inflation. That's not good globally, I mean, for the global markets itself. But when I take a look at this, and of course, I've seen other reports where, from governmental reports where they say that, no, UK doesn't have a very high inflation rate. I'm like, I don't think that's true. And then just in the comment section, Des is on the beach, so he's fine. Guys because Guy lives in UAB, United Arab Emirates, I believe. And he just got back to the UK. He says, I'm just back now, pretty fed up. All the people are pretty fed up. Half the country's on strike. People are afraid to put their heating on. Lots of friends are worried about the mortgages, tough times. US still going down. Asbo says, my utilities is already double what it was a year ago, and we're only half of the month. I mean, how is that sustainable? And then let's see, on Tuesday, with Ukraine. This is interesting. I live in the UK just another Tuesday with bailing out the Ukraine at the cost of our troops sleeping in the cold, giving up Julian Assange to a warmongering country. Hey, it's us. Plus changing government officials every week so we get on with it. And 2 World Cups. So just sound off in the comment section if that's true. But I look at this and I'm like, the narrative for when people are like, the Fed's going to pivot and then we're going to have a really great market and things like that. I'm like, I just don't see that happening anytime soon. I mean, just the macro events that are going on. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me just think about that in the comment section. And lastly, there's a nice little rumor making its way around Twitterville. And it looks like this just came out like an hour and a half ago. SBF is being rushed to the hospital. And then, people, you got to bring up John. Go, John. And then, this was like the last thing for like an hour, but it's not true. It appears SBF is in the hospital. The Bahamas press is now updated that SBF is at the Bahamas Department of Corrections and is not at the doctor's hospital. So just, it's tempting for me as a person who likes to talk about crypto to put these stories out, but I'm like, I just don't think that's right. So if you hear more things about this, so far it's inaccurate. Hopefully it doesn't get Epstein, and that's what's going on there. And then also, quick little Celsius update. This is just came out today. This is an order for the United States Bankruptcy Court, Southern District of New York. And what this states is, it's going to sound awesome at first, but just stick with me because it's not. It's not that awesome. And it states, upon the motion of the above captioned debtors, Celsius, in possession, collectively the debtors for entry of an order, this order. I always hate when legal speak. Authorizing the debtors to reopen withdrawals for certain customers with respect to certain assets held in custody and withhold accounts. So right now I'm like, oh, this is awesome. The court's going to allow us to take out funds from Celsius because I don't care what they want to do with a reorganization or Bitcoin mining. I don't care. I don't want to be a part of that. So you're holding my funds hostage for something that you want to do to reorganize and whatever else. Where's my say? My say is I don't want to give you squat. Give me all my money back. Give me all my crypto back. I don't know if anybody else is like me, but that's how I see it. So to go down this part, this court, having found that digital assets in the custody wallets and ineligible withhold assets are not property of the debtor's estates under Section 541 of the Bankruptcy Code. What this is see, Alex Mashinsky would go on these AMAs and he would talk about how, no, this is your crypto. When it comes to us, it's your crypto. We just, we loan it out, but we have collateral, so don't worry, but it's your crypto. It's your crypto. That's the CEO talking. And then, of course, in the terms and conditions, buried under 40 or 50 different pages, is like, no, it's ours. So anyhow, they're saying, no, that's not true. B, reserve decision with respect to whether digital assets transferred into the custody program but not held in the custody wallets are property of the debtor's estates under Section 541. So they reserve the decision with respect to whether digital assets transferred into the custody program but not held in the custody wallets. Okay, whatever. It's hereby ordered this. The motion is granted in part as set forth. This is it of today. The debtors are authorized, under the terms of this order and in consultation with advisors for the Official Committee of Unsecured Creditors, the UCC, to permit customers to withdraw digital assets held by the debtors on behalf of customers. Just don't get excited yet. Other than any current or former employees or insiders, or with respect to any foregoing any affiliate. I hate legal speak. What they're saying is, if you just think about this in parentheses, it's like they're going to permit you to withdraw your assets. The ones that can't are former employees or insiders or any foregoing any affiliate. So those guys can't, which great, makes sense. In the custody program and or associated with withhold account obligations that were one. These are the ones that can withdraw. You were only in the custody program, i.e. the pure custody assets. You never did like me, which I was an earn. And then they came out with that rule which was accredited investors can earn yield. The other ones can't. I'm like, well, I'm an accredited investor, but why does everybody else get screwed just because I make some money? So I'm just going to put it into custody and wait for this thing to, write itself out. Unfortunately, didn't. So I was not a pure custody program user, or transferred in the 90 days before the petition date from the earn program. So if you did one of those things, you're not going to, you can get your money back. However, the aggregate value of such transfer was less than $75.75. So here's what it comes down to. You're going to get your money back, but you're going to have to be a pure custody, like you never touched earn. And it has to be less than $75.75. And even though there's a motion right now to do this, there may be some other stipulations and things I'm not privy to right now, but that's what it says. And it could take a little bit of time because the wheels of justice move slow. And that's what we got. So that's it for the Celsius update. Sorry, it couldn't be better. But there is one thing that does sound pretty good. I like this. This right here is gossip. Tiffany Fong, you know her. She's the one. She's been on the show a couple of times, her and Aaron and Cam Cruz. And we talked about Celsius. She's the one that interviewed Sam Bankman-Fried and all that stuff. And she's the one that broke a lot of different things that are going on. She said, just so you know, I have reason to believe Binance will place a bid on Celsius Networks assets. Let me show this thread. Sources asked me to refrain from showing additional details until the second round of bids is placed. So I guess there's a first round of bids going on. To avoid disrupting bidding procedures, we'll share more whenever possible. That was 19 hours ago. So yeah, I know it sucks, but look, we got an early Christmas present yesterday. I mean, Binance bought up Voyager for $1.03 billion, which we're going to take a haircut, but hey, get our crypto assets back. That's good. Celsius might be along the way, but I expect it to be a massive discount, a massive haircut, but I could be wrong. I don't really care. Give it back to me because this is the best time to invest, in my personal opinion, and that's what I'm doing in the bear market. And that's it for today. Lastly, we did a Twitter Spaces a couple of days ago. So usually what we do is we do the news. It takes about 20 minutes or so, which we're done right now. Then we do a Q&A. I answer all your questions, best of my abilities. But a couple of days ago, I said, let's just do this. Let's do 10 minutes here on YouTube. And let's go over to Twitter Spaces. What's cool about Twitter Spaces is that you can physically talk to me like I never had heard Vicky before. And Vicky got to ask me a question. I got to talk to Vicky, which is pretty awesome. And he's like, hey, just got a question. I answered the question, went to the second one, third one. That was it. Took about 20 minutes, and that was everybody's questions. So I was like, well, this is pretty fun, because like you can type your question, but it's different than when you're interacting and talking, I thought that'd be pretty cool. So we did it. I liked it. Sound pretty good, but I can't do it every day because it just takes too much time. So I thought, well, let's just do this. I'm going to do a little poll. And the poll is, I want to do a Q&A session from this daily live stream. And I put a link in the description. You can just go over to Twitter and you can listen to me talk. You can talk to me directly, answer many questions. And because there's something lost when we type our questions. There is. However, I just put this poll out. Got about 150 votes. And I said, look, just want to do this once a week, Twitter Spaces. What's the best day for you? Thursday, Friday, or I won't listen. So far, 35% of people are saying, I won't listen. And this is why. Well, one nut Nick, which has he's got a pretty good backstory of why that's his name. He says, I say do it. I will listen and try depending on time. Just give plenty of warning. Who will be on the space? Ben? No. Just me and you guys. And then Peapox says, I have kids. I don't have time for Twitter Spaces. YouTube is best for me because I can listen next day in the work. You can also listen to Twitter Space because it can be recorded, just so you guys know. And then Crash Bob, I think this is the big issue. Twitter Spaces is very hard to listen to. Too many pauses and people talking over each other. Love the show. And Crash Bob is right. Have you listened to some of the Twitter Spaces? They are unlistenable. People are just arguing like cats and dogs, and it just sucks. But that's not what our Twitter space is going to be. It's just you come on, you say, Rob, I got a question. Should I invest into blah, blah, blah? Should I do this? Or you made a call this time and you're a moron. Why are you so dumb? Or whatever the question is. Then I'll answer that, and then we just go from there. But I do see some of the issues with Twitter Spaces. So depending on that poll, I will abide by the poll and go from there. Kind of like how Elon Musk is going to step down from a CEO role. So there's a link in the description, and it looks just like this. You follow me on Twitter, there it is. Yeah, and go ahead and vote, and we'll see where we go from there. And that's it. So look, that's it for today in the news. If you like today's video, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, all that good stuff. Now we'll do a little Q&A and go from there. So thanks so much, everybody, for stopping by. I appreciate it. See you on the next one. Now we do a little Q&A. Boop. Let's see. Where the hell are we? Banners. Get that out of the way. Don't need that. All right.